Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 here, coming at you with another video. So, a couple things to talk about. First of all, Luka Doncic signed the super max, 207 million 5-year deal, I believe it was. I think it was 5 years. Congratulations to him and his family. Well deserved. Underpaid, as I always say about those super max. When you're up in that echelon of players with that ability, I'd imagine that $207 million being your capped out amount that you can make is underpaying the players. But that's a beautiful payday nevertheless. And congratulations to him on being able to receive that. Congratulations to the Dallas Mavericks on retaining him. That's even a bigger deal because he would have got that check from anyone. Well, not technically, but you know what I'm trying to say. Any and every team would have maxed him out to their highest potential, but the supermax is only given to the team, given to the player who stays with the team that they're drafted with, uh, and is able to qualify that way. So, being he's been a Dallas Maverick the entire time, technically he was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks, but it doesn't matter because the draft rights were the Mavericks to begin with, and because of it, he's eligible. So that is fantastic news for him and the Dallas fan base. I'm pretty sure they are ecstatic. I know they were worried probably to death that maybe he wouldn't sign this extension. I remember reading a little earlier that they said they were going to fly to where he was and offer the extension to him there. And I was just thinking, I don't know. I hope he doesn't. I didn't know if he should sign it without being certain that this is the franchise. But I think you understand that the Dallas Mavericks have had an opportunity to be in the finals twice in the last 10 years. That's a very, very good ratio. And they've won that championship out of one of them. So when you consider what the success of the franchise, you consider that they have their picks, that they have, the ability to get better quickly. They're not overly capped out. You can move Porzingis, you can bring in some other players and get better, and build around a player like Luka Doncic who really can fit in any system, and you probably won't have any issues wherever he is and whatever role that he plays. So when you understand all of that, you understand that there's nothing wrong with this decision on both parties. If him being happy with the Dallas Mavericks, you could see room for them to enjoy building around him and him enjoy that. And if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you have absolutely no problem investing this amount and giving this much of a cap to one of the premier players in basketball, who's still under the age of 24 years. So, yeah, that's great, man. It's absolutely fantastic. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is Carmelo Anthony. He was introduced today as a Los Angeles Laker. And we heard some great things coming out of Carmelo. Great things. What was most encouraging and standing out for me is the fact that he was talking about ego and how he had long put that aside. And playing in Portland, he had played a role where he was asked to come off the bench and thrived in that role and found ways of motivating himself that way and was able to experience that and still enjoy the game, still see that he could still do his thing from a bench role. And it wasn't what he thought, more or less, is what I took from what he said. It wasn't something that he had ever been asked to do, and because of it, swallowing that pride and taking on that role wasn't something that was very, very easy for him to do, especially coming into a new situation with Thunder. I'd imagine that was not easy, but when he came to the Portland Trail Blazers after going through the Houston situation and all that, I'd imagine, that brought him to a point where being asked to do so in Portland wasn't so difficult. Another thing that he mentioned that I thought was really funny was when they started asking him about the age, he said, "We don't care about that. We're trying to set our own narrative." You know what I mean? It's not about necessarily age. It's about experience at this point. That players in today's era have more resources and at this age to where they can prolong their career. Wellness and taking care of your body are very, very important at this stage. He understands that more so now than ever and is now putting those things into practice and taking care of himself, and he's ready to go. He says him and LeBron James have been kind of laughing about maybe coming together and being on the same team, but they were on different paths. And up until this point, it really wasn't yet in the cards. But now it's the right time. Everybody's in a singular mindset about winning a championship, and everybody on this team is on board. They hear the chatter, but they're not interested in any of that. They're ready to bring their experience together and go after the ultimate goal. So he said he's been linked to the Lakers for a long time. Obviously, he mentioned his brother Kobe, and how Kobe would hit him up after bad games and set him straight and make sure that they talk, regularly, and that because of it, he always had a tie to the Lakers, even though he'd never played for the team. And when he came together with the team, transparency was what all he's asking. You guys just, whatever you ask me to do, I'll do it. Just stay up front with me. And he said that was a big deal for him. And so far, so good. He's happy to be a part of the Lakers, more or less. So that's what I took from his entire press conference for the most part. He's ready to go. As we know, LeBron James and he have been friends for a long time. So this has been a long time coming. It's fitting for him to win a championship, obviously, because of his brother Kobe Bryant passing away. And, for him to come to this organization at this time, when it's basically all said and done, when he was told that he probably didn't have a space in this league, that he couldn't play with other players, it's time, basically to come together and with him and someone like Russell Westbrook, who pretty much had the same narrative about him. They go down there and come to LA and play with a guy who gets hate for being the best player, simply hate for it. And this is a team with a chip on its shoulder. Anthony Davis had a bad year last year. I don't know if he's motivated by the same things those other guys are, but he should be more motivated to play well, just simply because of how poor he looked. He looked like he had a little bit of that jet lag after winning the championship. Kind of that, I'm satisfied type of thing going on. He didn't come in the best shape, and he didn't come in playing as sharp as we know he could. So I'm expecting him to have a chip on his shoulder in regards to just proving himself right. Proving himself worthy of a bounce back year and possibly being an MVP candidate, which we know he's capable of being. So it's a lot of motivation there. It's a lot of players with things to prove, a lot of players with a lot on their mind, and Carmelo Anthony is one of them. A lot on the line. So, I think they're all ready. I think they're ready to go. Obviously, it's still summertime, so guys have more learning to do about, playing with one another, things like that. They're going to finish off enjoying their summer, and then they're going to start training camp, get ready to go. So right now it's summer league time. The Lakers are doing pretty good. I think we're 2-1, 3-1 in the summer league. Mac and our guy Reeves, they call him Mac and Reeves, like mac and cheese. That's starting to be a thing. Two guys in the summer league going crazy, doing well. Devontae Kaycock, to me, seems like a guy that we should probably consider giving our last roster spot to, simply because of how old we are in the power forward position and what he looks like he's able to do at this point with his conditioning. He's really moving at a pace that speaks of explosion. It speaks of high productivity. I think if you give Devontae Kaycock an opportunity, I think you'll be very surprised at how productive he'll be. I just feel like if he were on a different team, he'd probably earn his way through the roster. Like right now, if he were in that Washington trade, I'm willing to bet he'd be probably their 10th man on the roster. Like he would be in their rotation, maybe even playing his way into a real role. I just think that we found a gem there with that guy. And he ain't the only one there. Believe me, just about everybody on that Laker team that I saw, they all have something about them that just makes you say, you know what, I think we're doing a great job. So give credit to our scouts, as usual, some of the best scouts in the business. So another thing that I'm hearing about, stepping away from the Lakers, is Lauri Markkanen. A lot of chatter surrounding his name. He wants out of Chicago. He really does want out of Chicago, and the two destinations that he's been linked to are Charlotte and Dallas. The Charlotte situation is interesting because I think that he provides a dynamic on that team that they don't have. Mostly what they have at the moment is a bunch of high-fly acts, guys who can get out in the open court and catch lobs from LaMelo Ball. Lots of that. P.J. Washington is is a fantastic offensive power forward. So he's somebody who can do a lot of things for you, stretch the floor, stuff like that. So they do have some spacing, but a guy like Lauri Markkanen gives them a pure shooting stretch 4 or 5 player. They have a guy by the name of Mason Plumlee in there right now at the center position, who I think is fantastic for what it is that they do, because he gives them another facilitator in their starting lineup with LaMelo Ball that can keep the ball popping. It's one of those things where when I think of Mason Plumlee, I think of passing. I know that a lot of people think of him as a high fly act, rebounder, traditional big, but his passing ability is what really, really pops out for me. That's what makes him special. Keeps him as somebody that you always want on your team, even though he's not that great of a free throw shooter. It's because, like a guy like Joakim Noah back in the day, he secretly was a fantastic passer. Most people didn't really know it, but that's what both of those guys have very, very, very much in common, and they can facilitate. If you have a point guard that's like, let's say, Chicago's issue last year with a guy like Kobe White, who's more so hell-bent on shooting rather than best at facilitating the ball, that's what a guy like Mason Plumlee comes in, and you have a facilitator on the floor coming out of a different position. We know how important that is. A guy like I want to say Luka Doncic, but obviously no. Nikola Jokic is basically making a whole career out of what I'm saying right there at the center position, facilitating the basketball. So they can get away with having Jamal Murray and guys like Porter, who are not facilitators, having the ball in their hands at various guard spots and things of that nature because of how great he is at passing. Plumlee will do that for the Charlotte team, and that is exactly what they need in regards to having Markkanen step into the power forward position and have somebody else that can kind of get him the basketball to go along with LaMelo Ball. So they'll always have fantastic opportunities to make him look good. That's basically what I was getting around to saying. Plumlee, Ball, make Markkanen look good, and that's exactly what he has not had playing in Chicago with Kobe White. That's exactly what he will have if he stays in Chicago with Lonzo Ball. But I do think swapping from Lonzo to Melo in Markkanen's case would be best for him because I believe that Charlotte provides a bigger role. They have so many people in Chicago right now that are going to be shooting the ball. So many guys that are going to need to get their points up. A guy like Markkanen is probably never going to score more than 20 points a game, no matter how well he plays in that Chicago system. I'm talking if he starts playing like his best version of himself. They just simply have too many mouths to feed in Chicago. A guy like Patrick Williams is not going to be coming off the floor like that. You're going to find out that he's so significantly important on the defensive end for a team like Chicago, who doesn't have a whole lot of defenders outside of his position. Him and Lonzo are the best defenders down there, in my opinion. Once you have an understanding that he can play 35 plus minutes a game and is up to that level, which I think is close, a guy like Markkanen's role starts to become a little less important, a little less available to a guy like Markkanen will be minutes, is what I'm trying to say. So you send him to Charlotte, yes, he'll still be in the same role coming off the bench as a power forward because he's not going to start in front of P.J. Washington, and I don't think you move Washington to 5 and Plumlee to the bench. I don't think so. That's a very small ball lineup, questionable defensively. So in my opinion, he would still come off the bench, similar role, more minutes, more significance, probably more shots, because he's one of the premier three-point shooters on that Charlotte team if he's to go there. So that's how I look at that role. One thing that I always want to mention when I think about Charlotte is Gordon Hayward, because he's always expected to have a very, very big role. Even though he's kind of lost in the fold since LaMelo has such big star power and the youngsters are such high fly acts that complement Melo so much, at the end of the day, the leader on that team is Gordon Hayward. And he's also somebody who's going to garner a lot of attention, leaving Markkanen opportunities to shoot the ball. So that's kind of how I envision that Charlotte team. Markkanen makes them better, and that would be a good acquisition for them if they don't have to give up too much to get him. So that would be a sign and trade there. And then the other side of the things would be the Dallas side. Of course, as we mentioned, Luka's on board now for the long term. So, of course, marketing will come in and give them a similar dynamic to what they already have in terms of creating opportunities to have that European stretch five, like Porzingis, Luka Doncic, a big body. Marketing also would be a big body. So it just keeps them with the Dallas tradition of having those type of players in place. I think it might be a bit of a reach in a way because Lauri Markkanen is a very, very poor defender, and Dallas is a significantly poor. Well, they were not that great of a defensive team last year. I expect them to kind of be along the same lines this year in terms of defense. And bringing Markkanen in kind of brings you kind of even further down from there, depending on what else you do with your roster. So it's a little bit more of a questionable fit for me. I think you're kind of reaching there if you're Dallas, to be honest with you. It's like, I get it. You like these type of players. You know, Dirk Nowitzki is your guy, and you look at Markkanen as a Dirk Nowitzki type player that went to a bad organization and they didn't develop him properly, which was very predictable when he was drafted to the Chicago Bulls. We all figured he should be going to Dallas, and it just never happened. But, you know, trying to reach for him right now with the roster that they have in place, it's going to be one of those things where I just say to you, that's like something that you do when you just want certain types of players. That's not necessarily the best fit for Luka Doncic, but you can create that if you're hell-bent on it. You just have to move other pieces around to make it make sense. But what they're going to have to do is get some defenders down there. You can't run Markkanen, Porzingis, and Luka Doncic out there and think that's going to get it done. The good thing is you can, and you don't have to worry about Luka leaving because he just signed that contract. So you know, if you're the Dallas Mavericks, I'd say it's more reasonable to make this deal now than it was 24 hours ago. I'd say you don't take a risk like that if you don't know Luka's staying. But if you know Luka's staying, and this is something that he would be cool with, which it sounds like it's something he'd be interested in, then you'd be happy to bring it to him, especially since he signed the contract. You give him what he wants. Now it's like sort of like you did with if you're Milwaukee and Giannis. Now it's like, okay, we have you on board. We know exactly how much of the cap you're getting. We have you in our plans. We know what you need. Now we can just go ahead and get it. Because when we have you in the balance, we don't know if we're keeping you. It's kind of hard to bring the pieces to you that you want because we don't know if we're going to keep you or not. And those pieces are obsolete if you're not here. So it's like, now that we have you in place, okay, slide Luka to the side. Now let's see what we can get, and we can really build around him. So I like the idea of Luka signing that contract if he's really serious. Now they can start doing that. So if I'm Lauri Markkanen, for culture's sake, for branding's sake, obviously Dallas is a better destination. But to be completely real with you, the basketball fits in two other areas. Both Chicago, where he's at, and Charlotte, to me, are a bit better basketball fits for him. Now, that's kind of skewed, though, because Dallas is going to feature him more than probably Charlotte would be able to. So he'll get more shots. He'll individually get opportunities more so than he would in those two other spots. But as far as winning is concerned, if you value winning in this case, you'd rather go to Charlotte or Chicago, because neither one, you know, Chicago's going to be doing some winning this year, in my opinion. Charlotte is a much improved basketball team who will be in the play-in tournament, in my opinion. Dallas may make the play-in tournament. You know, that's how I see them. In the Western Conference, a bit different. You're dealing with the Utahs, you're dealing with the Denvers, you're dealing with obviously the Lakers, you're dealing with now new look Rockets, new look Sacramento, Phoenix is still in the mix. It's too many contenders out here, you know, too many contenders. Golden State is back, Klay is healthy. Like, there's just really no room for a team like Dallas to really overachieve. I mean, I don't see no way they get above the 8th seed, 7th seed play-in. I just don't see it. They don't have the roster. They're going to have to make some more moves that they have not made as of yet. I like that they brought in some shooting, you know, Reggie Bullock, bringing back Tim Hardaway. Those were good moves. A lot of shooting. So Luka Doncic is going to average more assists, I think, this year, given the fact that he has more reliable shooting than he did last. But I don't know if it answers some of the issues that they have defensively. And that's what it's really going to come down to. If they can't, they're not going to be able to put up enough points to beat some of those teams that I just mentioned. If bringing in Lauri Markkanen or just running with what they got now, they're just not going to be able to put up enough points. So, in my humble opinion, if they're not planning on making a big splash, like a huge splash move, I think they should just aim for just not making the playoffs, to be completely honest with you. Now, and I only say that because now they have Luka on board. You got him for 5 years, so you don't have to worry about whether or not he's leaving. You can start building organically, naturally, through the draft with Luka on board. He's going to carry you. He's going to make his all-star teams. He's going to do what he has to do. You're not going to be able to pull this off for too many years. He'll probably make the playoffs next year. But at least you can have 1 year where you can get yourself a lottery pick. Maybe flip that lottery pick for a real player and get yourself a sustainable future. Because right now, Porzingis being your second, plans are getting Markkanen, a couple shooters coming from free agency. That didn't do it. You guys aren't going to be that good. Unless Luka Doncic just runs crazy. And even if he runs crazy, what's the ceiling? Portland with Dame? Like, that's about as far as you're going to get. First round, out. Second round at best. That's his ceiling this year. That doesn't look as appealing to me because you don't have the pieces in place right now to make something like that be a moral victory. You see what I'm saying? Like, for example, if the Houston Rockets, look at the Houston Rockets situation. They know for a fact they have everybody. They got their whole team. Whatever they're going to run with for the next 5 years, pretty much in place. All they really want to see happen is progress now. They don't need to make the playoffs. They get 35 wins is cool, but if they can get a rookie of the year out of their guy Green, Porter takes a step forward, Wood makes an all-star team, that's the type of thing that Houston wants to see. Because they know next year they're going to probably go for 42 wins. And the year after that, they'll go for 52 wins. And the year after that, they're going to be in a contender. So it's like, it makes sense for Dallas because it's like, it doesn't make as much sense for Dallas, rather, because they don't have that type of sustainability in place yet. They don't have those young players surrounding Luka Doncic to make it make sense. So them making the playoffs this year, they could take 3 steps back just with a couple shuffles of players. The only really mainstay is Luka Doncic and whatever they build with next year. You go maybe make the playoffs next year. That's not sustainability. That's just barely making the playoffs every year. Do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference. There's a difference between having a future and barely making the playoffs and seeing the fruit in that versus just having a team every year kind of shuffle in and out different players and just make playoffs kind of and just hang around. That's the difference between being in a good situation and not. You see what I'm saying? So Dallas is on the verge of being the next Portland unless they take a season off, in my opinion, and start getting some sustainable pieces down there. Now, that's not the only way to acquire high draft picks. You don't have to necessarily tank to acquire high draft picks. But I look at the players they have in place, and I don't see anything trade-worthy that would bring them back something like that. That's what I'm saying to you. So, like, you know, the players that they have in place, in theory, those are not that great of contracts. Because to be honest with you, at $70-something million for Tim Hardaway, that's a bit high. Like, you're happy to have that contract because he fits what you're doing. But once you try to move that contract, it's not as appealing. I think the same way about Fournier's contract. It's not as appealing than once you try to move it. Bullock, same thing. At whatever price he's at, yeah, you can move that. But it's like, it's not that easy. So I'm thinking along the lines of, if Dallas is going to really get better, Porzingis having not as much value as his role on their team, they're gonna have to break it down. They're gonna have to pull a Washington, you know, and let Luka be Bradley Beal right now. So I don't think they're gonna do that. So I'm afraid the only other move they're gonna have to do is try to swing for the fences and hope for the best. So expect Dallas to be making trades, expecting to make some trades, because I don't think they're gonna do the right thing in that regard. I really don't. I just don't expect it. But they can, because they have him on board for many years. So I think that's what I got to say, man. I've been up here rambling. I thank you all for watching. My name is BDL44. I'm out.